Richard and Stephen Mattea were found guilty in regards to numerous sexual offences against two boys committed from 1989 to 1993. In this video, I will report on the first sentence hearing on the 2nd of February 2024. I would suggest, if you haven't already, that you should watch my most recent video where I discuss last year's trial and special hearing that led to them both being found guilty. The only media report I have seen in regards to this hearing were two online reports dated February 3, 2024. The first is from the Newcastle Herald, and it states, both Stephen and Richard Mattea, twin brothers who sexually assaulted two boys in Lake Macquarie more than 30 years ago, are now both suffering from signs of cognitive deterioration, Newcastle District Court has heard. The Mattea twins, 71, on Friday afternoon appeared in court via audio-visual link from jail to face a sentence hearing that the pair were found to have committed a string of sexual and indecent assaults against two young boys between 1989 and 1993. After Stephen Mattea was found unfit to stand trial on 45 charges due to dementia, the pair had last year faced a concurrent special hearing and judge-alone trial in Newcastle District Court. These proceedings concluded with Judge Peter McGrath making qualified findings of guilt in relation to all but 3 of the charges against Stephen Mattea, although 8 were not in the aggravated circumstances in which the charges were put to the court. So there were originally 45 charges against Stephen Mattea, 11 were dropped, and 8 basically reinstated, but not aggravated, so lesser charges. Richard Mattea was found guilty of all 8 counts related to the abuse of one boy. But on Friday afternoon, when it came time for the sentence hearing, Judge McGrath was told Richard Mattea was now showing the early signs of cognitive deterioration and would need to be assessed by a neuropsychologist before he could be sentenced. So the brother that faced the trial, Richard Mattea, and not the special hearing, is now also suffering similar symptoms to his twin brother, which is probably not surprising because I'd say there's a genetic factor there. But anyway, that meant little progress could be made on Friday, but the two men did sit and listen as one of the victims read an emotive victim impact statement. "I was only an innocent child," the man said. "A child who hoped for a happy, fulfilled future of holidays, fun, health, education, work, and family. Unfortunately for me, none of those came about. Instead, by the actions of an adult, I was denied those positive aspects of life and learned pain, fear, anxiety, violence, and depravity. The court heard that Stephen Mateer preyed on 2 boys while they were aged between 12 and 14 in the Lake Macquarie area from the late 1980s to the early 1990s. In one attack in the back of a van, the brothers touched the genitals of one of the boys before inciting him to manually stimulate them. Richard Mateer then raped the child. Judge McGrath found that Stephen Mateer sexually assaulted this boy and another on separate occasions while taking them for driving lessons. Another time, Stephen Mateer, who met the boys through the Belmont pizza shop where he worked, incited the children to touch each other. Stephen and Richard Mateer were arrested after detectives from Strike Force Arapaima, investigating the long unsolved disappearances of Lake Macquarie girls Robin Hickey and Amanda Robinson, were tipped off to a string of alleged sexual assaults against 2 boys in the late 1980s and early 1990s. The second article I'm going to read you is by Amy Zinnack, and it was in the Newcastle news section of the Daily Telegraph. So, as I mentioned, it's online as well. Still haunted by the trauma of many years ago, a brave victim of sexual abuse has described how the scars remain truth of a childhood lost. The court heard how the darkness, beginning as an innocent child, had shadowed most of the man's life and continued to impact every aspect of his being, as he struggled to shake the feeling of shame, guilt, and being unworthy. This invisible burden is in every part of my life. This whole story was bottled up inside me for all these years. The man, now aged in his 40s, sobbed as he read a victim impact statement at Newcastle District Court on Friday. I could never share my whole self, a constant reminder of the horrors I endured. I was just a boy. The memories haunt me through flashbacks and nightmares. His abuse came at the hands of twin brothers and serial pedophiles Richard and Stephen Mateer, who were found to have preyed on young boys dating back more than 30 years. Now in their 70s, the brothers watched on via video link from Long Bay Jail as they prepared to be sentenced for their horrific abuse of boys in the Lake Macquarie area between 1989 and 1993. But that was cut short as Richard's defence barrister, Rebecca Court, informed the court her client had been suffering from cognitive decline and funding was needed to be sought from legal aid for a neuropsychologist to assess him. She said she was not in a position to continue with the sentence as there was no weight without an expert report. Judge Peter McGrath agreed Richard Mateer had started to deteriorate throughout the trial last year and the finding needed to be explored before sentencing. Both had their matters adjourned until March. And I've since found out that is March 15, so very soon. During the trial in May, the brothers both argued they had been incorrectly identified as abusers, but it was found the brothers were guilty for a number of horrendous acts. Evidence was heard that Stephen Mateer used his pizza shop to groom the boys, giving them free food and drinks before abusing them with his brother and on their own. It was also heard the pair talked one boy into the back of a van before abusing him and then buying him a soft drink. While Stephen was found to have incited two boys to perform sex acts on each other as he watched on and became involved. The twins, both of whom have already served significant jail terms for abusing other boys dating back to the 1980s, were arrested again in 2021 by Strikeforce Arapaima, set up to investigate the suspected murders of 14-year-old Amanda Robinson and 18-year-old Robin Hickey in 1979. While they weren't found to have anything to do with those disappearances and were never charged, detectives hunted down evidence against the pair after new allegations came to light. Following last year's trial, Judge McGrath found that Stephen had committed 42 offences, which included sexual and indecent assault of a person under 16, sexual intercourse with a person under 16, soliciting a male under 18 to commit a homosexual act, and sexual assault in company. While Richard was found guilty of 7 counts of sexual assault, assault with an act of indecency in company, and 1 count of sexual intercourse with a person aged between 10 and 16. Okay, so there's been another delay because now the other brother showing the signs of cognitive impairment, probably dementia. Being twins, and there is genetic factor behind dementia, it's probably not that unusual that it's arisen in both of them around the same time. But anyway, I guess that may complicate the sentencing of Richard now, because he had a trial. Even the judge is acknowledging that he was showing signs of cognitive decline during the trial. I guess all it means really is they'll probably assess him the same way that they're assessing Stephen. And, interesting. But I guess since a trial and a special hearing are held in similar manner, when Richard is being sentenced, they'll probably just take into account that he wasn't giving himself a sufficient defence, possibly, and take that into account when they do the sentencing. But anyway, we did get one victim impact statement, and sounds a bit torturous on him. But anyway, the next hearing will be on the 15th of March, so I will try and upload another video about that not long after, because I imagine there will be a bit more information. Also, Warren McCorriston is having a committal hearing for his charge in January for abducting the girl or for the alleged abduction of a girl aged 16 at Gateshead in 1980 after she got off a bus, which he allegedly did using a knife. I imagine being the initial committal hearings, well, this is the second one, but it's one of the initial ones. We won't hear much about that because probably won't be anything of significance for the media to report on. But if there is, I'll mention that too in my next video. Anyway, if you like to see my future videos and the one I just discussed, which I'll upload shortly after the hearing, you can subscribe and click on the bell to be notified of those and all my future videos. I'm David A. Elliott. Have a good one and see you around. Like a ristle.